Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football presented by BKCW. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every morning by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Guys, we are, a little over 24 hours away from kickoff, so tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking this morning. Obviously, get your questions in. We got a loaded show today. Here in a little bit, we're going to be joined by JJ Perez of Inside Runner Sports. Be talking the UTSA game. And then, Jerry, you lined us up something special. John Simon, the father of Texas running back commit James Simon, who knows a thing or two about playing football as well. He'll be joining us around 8:50. So it's going to be some good stuff today. But let's just jump right into it. And we're going to start with that UTSA game. Guys, it's going to be hot.
But yeah, I mean, look, I had some I was thinking about this morning. I had the San Antonio roast coffee from HEB this morning, as I do every morning, about 5:50 to about 6:10. I was thinking, man, this coffee's hot. It's going to be just about as hot Saturday.
Earlier in the week we made the mistake of saying, "Oh, it's going to be in the 80s probably." Yeah, we misread I don't know how we do this, but Bobby Burton did it. He misread the temperature gauge or the temperature map online. And it looks like it's going to be 97 to 98 at kickoff. It's going to be a hot one. Of course, San Antonio knows hot too. This isn't going to be like Texas playing Colorado State where the Rams didn't really know what was going on when they came in and got a hold of that heat. It won't have that effect on UTSA. I thought last night, what was interesting, Jerry, what did you think of this game last night, the Texas State, Arizona State game? I thought Arizona State, even though they're from as hot, if not hotter place than San Marcos, Texas, I thought the humidity got to them a little bit last night. They withstood the Bobcats, but just barely, winning 31-28 in San Marcos. G.J. Kinney has a chance, guys. He's got a chance.
Well, here's what I would say. He needs to get out after this year and get a Power 4 job. There is just no sustainability in G5 football because they've done a good job. They've got good players. You know what happens? Those guys hit the portal. Yep. And you cannot sustain. It's hard to sustain in the G5 level nowadays. There's two, and people are going to see that with UTSA this weekend. It's hard to sustain the success because if you get really good players, they're hitting the portal. So you got to get out. You got to hit it and get out at those jobs more than ever.
Well, let's jump back over to the UTSA game, fellas, and a little more line movement, albeit very, very minor. Yesterday, it was at 35. Now it's at 35.5. But ESPN still gives Texas the overwhelming odds to beat the Roadrunners.
I think Vegas is listening to every Jeff Traylor interview and moving the lineup.
He's either sincere or playing the biggest game of possum of all time.
No,
he's both.
I know him. I know Jeff well. He is a very genuine guy, and he is preparing his fan base.
Well, look. They lost their two best players from a year ago. They lost all those receivers. Frank Harris, the quarterback, Trey Moore, the defensive end, sack specialist, now at Texas. He said it. They've got a young team.
Yeah.
They did not even complete 50% of their passes a week ago against Texas State. Averaged like 2.7 yards a rush against Texas State. They have some issues on offense, but they also have some issues on defense. I think Texas State racked up 500 plus yards against them a week ago. So the big focus here for me, Jerry, and even though we're going to have the UTSA beat writer on, is the focus on the internal focus on the Longhorns. On Texas football this morning, I wrote about this, and I genuinely believe it. Handling success is part of growing as a program.
Yeah.
A year ago, I don't know that Texas handled success very well, right? Went into after beating Alabama on the road, they go into a Wyoming game tied in the fourth quarter, right? They go to Houston and go up early, big, and then just flounder, right? There were multiple instances of that where they weren't really handling success. And I think that's going to be one of the next steps is dominating an opponent like you should, playing, I don't want to say error-free because you're always going to make some errors.
Right.
But a high level of execution is expected, a high level of aptitude, effort, every play. Important, in my opinion, for this week, for the Longhorns to keep moving forward, because that's really what this is about. It's a 12-game regular season. We're only 2 games in. This after Saturday, we will be 1 quarter through the regular season. So make it count.
I remain the same on this team. Great team for a coaching staff to coach, because they got close last year but didn't quite climb the mountaintop. Those are always the best teams to coach, as long as you have good culture and nothing's done to crack that, which it hasn't happened at Texas. Those are great teams to coach because those guys are self-motivated. They know, whenever you get really close and you leave with tears in your eyes, man, those are the best teams to coach. I really believe that in sports. And it doesn't mean you come back and win it the next year. But what you don't have to worry about as much with the staff is maturity and focus. I just think these guys have it because they know how close they were, and they now have the belief that they can get it done. And that doesn't mean they will. It's going to be harder than ever to win a national championship in college football with a 12-team playoff and eventually 16. But there's a real belief with this team. And with belief comes the own internal expectations, I think, and the hunger with it. I just think it's a great team to coach. But I'll say this. I challenge the Texas fan base again. Double the amount of people that show up on Bevo Boulevard when the team gets off the bus this week. Get there 2 hours early. It's a night game. Get there 2 hours early. You want this team to run out of that tunnel with as much emotion as possible this week. The fans are a big part of that in games where you're supposed to win by 40.
I will say this. I talked to Neil Golden. I'm texting him this morning. He's one of the owners of Flat Creek Estate Wines. The frosés are supposed to be flowing early and often over at the wine garden next to the stadium with Flat Creek Estate. They open their doors over there at 12 o'clock, by the way. So that'll be good. Jerry, you broke a little news. We're burying the lead a little bit, talking about the Bobcats and what Texas needs to do tomorrow. We're burying the lead somewhat. Texas not only picked up a commitment yesterday from Zealous Hicks, a defensive back out of Carrollton, Georgia, but the Longhorns also, you did a little recon and went out and watched Richmond Randall play last night. That's the home of Chase Sims, the big defensive tackle that's committed to Texas A&M. And you found a little interesting news for the Longhorns. Give people some news there, buddy.
Well, yeah, so I went to Mercer Stadium last night. Man, think about all the players that have played at Mercer Stadium over the years, by the way, Bobby. Now Fort Bend ISD has 3 stadiums, but just think about
Thurman Tide. I saw Thurman Thomas there.
At Thurman Thomas, I mean, there's been so many NFL players that have played at Mercer, so that was always cool to go back there. But here's what I would say. Chase, we've been talking. I've been mentioning Chase Sims on TexasFootball.com. I've been mentioning for a couple of weeks, Mississippi State game, visit possibility. If not that, Georgia. I had a pretty good feeling something was coming. So I went down to watch Richmond Randall against Fort Bend Travis last night. And Chase Sims, we've had him as a 4-star. I've had him as a 4-star since last spring because I believe that's where he is as a prospect. 6'2.5", 285. Long arms, over 80-inch wingspan. There you see of the over 10-inch hands. He confirmed that he's going to make an official visit, not unofficial, official visit to Texas for the Mississippi State game. So I think as long as that official goes well, that's not going to be good news for the Aggies. But here's a little bit of what he had to say last night.
On Texas football here at Mercer Stadium with victorious Chase Sims and Randall High. Chase got an official visit coming up to Texas on September 28th. What are your thoughts on Texas and kind of Kenny Baker's that relationship's grown?
Oh yeah, it's definitely been growing. It's been picking up ever since I've been committed. It started off slow, but now that they're pushing hard and they're trying to get me over there. So yeah, sir.
How often do you talk to Coach Baker?
Damn near every day, yes sir. He texts me before games and throughout the week, and just let me know that he's thinking about me, and I talk to defense staff too. So
yeah,
yes,
yeah. So talk about kind of your thoughts on Texas right now going into that visit.
They're looking really good, very explosive. They're looking very sound on defense, and I mean, I'm just looking to see what they got.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Good stuff, Jerry. That's what you get when you get out there. Are you going to see Jonah Williams tonight too? Is that right?
That's a home game. Galveston Ball's at Friendswood, so I will make the 5.5-minute drive over there to watch Jonah. But yeah, it's I'm looking forward to watching Jonah tonight because this will probably be the only time I see him in person this year. Because you got to go out and see all the guys. You know, a lot of time to watch guys multiple times. And I went to their first practice of the season, obviously, when we broke that news about him deciding to graduate in December and give up MLB baseball. But yeah, by the way, Chase Sims, I want to say this last night. It remains A&M commitment, and Texas is the only team in it. I mean, LSU's messed around, but Texas is the only team in it. And I'll say this. I think he's always liked Texas. So as long as this conversation with Kenny Baker and Sark go well in that official visit, I think A&M is going to be up against it. But as a prospect, I've always liked this guy. Look, a lot of people just say, well, he's an over the ball. He's going to be a nose. I'm not sure about that. He was in the backfield last night as much as the Travis running back was. He may have well been wearing 23 and taking handoffs. I mean, he was in the back. In the first half, he had a caused fumble. He had 4 or 5 quarterback pressures. He had multiple tackles for loss. Now, he wasn't playing against a power 4 or D-line, D1 offensive lineman, but he was going up against 2 every play. And he's got an understanding of how to get kind of small, skinny as a defensive lineman with an 80-inch wingspan. So he's got quickness. He's got a really good first and second step. He gets small. He gets skinny. And then he has those long arms. So he can do a lot with that length. I think he has a chance to develop into a decent pass rusher as a defensive lineman long term. I've always been high on this guy. I like him more even after last night because in a game where they were blowing out somebody, it didn't change his motor, Bobby. The guy was chasing the football at 37-7 in the third quarter. He wasn't just that running backs. He's going out to the hash. I'm not going to do this one this time. Nah, he showed motor last night in the blowout. A lot of guys don't show motor in a blowout.
All right, hey, I want to say thanks real quick, Blake and Jerry, if you don't mind. Today's show being brought to you by our friends over at BKCW Business Insurance. Did your business have a frustrating insurance or employee benefits renewal? Most likely you didn't hear from your agent all year, and then right before it was time to renew, your agent delivered the bad news of a rate increase with no time to look for other options. When this happens, the agent is providing no value, and you're stuck in what we call the insurance trap. BKCW takes your business out of the insurance trap by providing you with actual risk management consulting, not just price quoting. Owned by a UT grad and operating out of its Austin headquarters, they evaluate your business's weak spots, design a plan, execute it, and monitor your situation throughout the year. BKCW has risk consultants that specialize in many different industries, from construction and transportation to nonprofits, school districts, on and on. You'll get matched up with someone who knows your risk and can help you and your business escape the insurance trap. Get started with a free risk assessment at bkcw.com. Send an email to info@bkcw.com or call them 512-250-5055. That's 512-250-5055. That's BKCW, our choice for business insurance.
Thank you, Bobby. And like I said, here shortly, we're going to have JJ Perez of Inside Runner Sports join us. But I want to go back to recruiting for a minute, Jerry, because we didn't really get a chance to talk about it. Texas did get a commitment yesterday. Run through that for a second before we bring JJ in.
Yeah, Zealous Hicks, currently 2026 safety out of Carrollton, Georgia. Played his first 2 years of high school football at Lilburn Parkview High, 67 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss. Moved over to Carrollton this year for his junior season, which, I think maybe he tries to reclass to 2025. We'll see what happens there if that actually pans out. But moved over to Carrollton, one of the power programs in the state, highest paid high school coach in America, I believe, over there. Congrats to Joey King. And quarterback Juju Lewis, obviously have a junior corner committed to Bama. But this is a downhill safety. He's a physical football player. He's been physical since his freshman year playing varsity football at safety. Those guys are physical. But he's really good playing downhill. Takes good angles in the run game, is a, like I said, physical player, has ball skills, has good hands. That first showed up for me at the Under Armour camp in Atlanta, at the Under Armour camps, they do the NFL gauntlet drill. You see at the combine. He showed tremendous hands in the gauntlet drill at the Under Armour camp last spring. So he's got the hands, he's got the ball skills. You don't see as much in coverage from him on high school tape, but he's got the skill set, right? But there's going to be some people say, well, we don't see much of the coverage. But I'll say this, 32 offers, pick Texas over Ohio State, Auburn, Tennessee. I mean, you name it. So all the college coaches that have been through to evaluate him certainly think he's one of the top safeties in the country in the 26 class. And we'll see what he does in terms of staying in 26, or does he actually make the move to try to reclassify to 25? Big win in Georgia for Texas.
Thank you, Jerry. And we're going to go ahead and bring in JJ Perez. JJ with Inside Runner Sports. How's it going this morning?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on, JJ. We hear Jeff Traylor talking up the Longhorns like they're the 85 Bears right now. Jeff talking like Texas can do no wrong. The greatest team since sliced bread here in Austin. Is this Jeff Traylor buttering up the Longhorns, or is it a situation where UTSA might be truly outmatched after 2 years ago putting on a good show in Austin, to be honest?
Yeah, I think if you look back 2 years ago, right, the roles are a little bit reversed with both teams, right? Sark was just getting started, trying to get the identity of his team going, and I think that game was tied at halftime, right? Kind of much to everybody's surprise, the Longhorns did pull away in the second half. And, this for the Roadrunners, this is a completely different squad from then, right? They graduated a lot of their leadership, a lot of really all-time Roadrunners, to be quite frank with you, are no longer on the roster. And they got a lot of new players, a lot of transfers in key positions. I think 3 new starters on the offensive line. That group's still trying to figure out, and a new starting quarterback. So a couple of key contributors on defense as well. And they're not there yet. They're still the version of this team isn't where it's going to be at the end of the season. And unfortunately for UTSA, they get to face number 2 Texas in week 3. This is the highest ranked team the Roadrunners have ever faced. UTSA's never beaten a ranked team in their 14 years. So a lot is stacked up against the Roadrunners this week. And I think Coach Traylor is just trying to temper the expectations a little bit, to be honest with you, this week.
Who's going to start at quarterback? Has he come out and said that for sure it's Marburger or McCown? What's going on there?
Yeah, Owen McCown's a starter. He was kind of the favorite in the preseason, and they let that battle go all the way to the start of week 1. He's only played a handful of games here at UTSA. He was a 4-game starter at Colorado as a freshman before Dion got there. He transferred to UTSA after the staff change in Colorado. So a connection there through East Texas and his dad and his family with Coach Traylor. But yeah, a good young quarterback, strong arm, good at reading defenses, quick decision making. But you know, obviously the play of the offensive line is where the not enough attention gets paid there. So there's been struggles there, and he's struggled a little bit because of that in the first 2 weeks of the season. But yeah, for sure, Owen's going to start, and we may see a little bit of Eddie, to be honest with you. He's played okay in his time. A lot of people at UTSA want to see more of him, and we'll just see how this one plays out.
Hey, JJ, thanks for joining us. I want to ask you about Trey Moore, because Texas fans are still getting to know Trey Moore, but you've probably spent a lot of time talking to him, covering Trey Moore, probably even through his recruitment to UTSA. Tell the Texas fan base what Trey Moore from your perspective.
So he was actually a late addition. I forget what recruiting class it was, but he came in late in the summer of his first year at UTSA. And I think he went to Army for a week or 2 and decided he didn't like it and didn't have nowhere else to go. And UTSA kind of opened their arms to him. And he was kind of an under-recruited guy out of, San Antonio area high school. And it's like, who's this guy going to turn into? And UTSA's had a good run of kind of that edge rusher, outside linebacker combo guy. And he was just the next guy to step into that role. So a fantastic player, and a really, really good just individual, like human being. So I know Coach Traylor and UTSA fans were gutted when he decided to leave before the bowl game, right? And I know that was a difficult decision, but Coach Traylor talked about it this week that, they did it right. Like, him and his dad came into his office, they sat down, they explained the situation, they communicated it as soon as possible so that they could try and go and recruit, another player. So a twitchy guy. I think that what you saw against Michigan is what you're going to see the rest of the season. And really, the sky's the limit. There is no country he couldn't start for. And I'm glad he's starting for the Longhorns. I know it was kind of touch and go there. Maybe he was going to be a part-time starter, but we'll see how the rest of his season goes. And I hope he stays healthy. I think he battled some injury, an ankle last year, maybe a shoulder. So we'll see how the rest of the season treats him. But other than tomorrow, I think a lot of the Roadrunner fans are really rooting for Trey to have a big season for the Longhorns.
If there's a player tomorrow for Texas fans that plays for UTSA that I think they need to keep an eye on, and just from an athletic standpoint, it's Devin McEwen. McEwen was an underrated guy coming out of Jacksonville. He was hurt a little bit, ran 10.6, 10.7 and 100 meters. I know it's been a struggle getting the ball in the space that UTSA does, but what have you seen from him early on? Because he's got real speed.
Yeah, him and Owen McCown, I guess they have that East Texas connection, right? So they've built a quick rapport. Last season, going back to last season, he was his favorite target. He's his favorite target this season. So yeah, he could do everything. I mean, if he was 2 inches taller, he might have been a 4 or 5 star guy playing at a Power 5 school, right? So I know there were NIL offseason looks that he kind of turned down and didn't want to leave. I think the connection with his family and Coach Traylor is really deep. So we see a lot of those stories at UTSA because, quite honestly, UTSA's NIL isn't on par with some of the other schools in the American Conference. So yeah, a dynamic threat. They try and keep him away from media a little bit so that he doesn't blow up too much. But yeah, he'll be a factor. I think as long as they're able to protect the quarterback enough to where he could get the ball out, we may see, a lot of dink and dunks or quick slants or stuff like that to try and mitigate that. I know last week against Texas State, they did a lot of max protect with multiple tight ends. So it's all everything's kind of up in the air as far as offensive scheme and what they do moving forward because of the struggles they've had the first 2 weeks.
I've got to ask you, yesterday they announced the addition of schools to the Pac-12. Fresno State, Boise State, teams like that going into the Pac-12. Have you heard anything as it relates to conference realignment in UTSA? I know that would almost be odd to ask, but I've got to ask you, given the state of college football, we never know where your next conference will be. Have you heard anything like that about UTSA and its dalliances with other leagues?
Yeah, I think the definite answer to that is I have not heard anything just yet, but I know that there's interest, right? There's always going to be interest. So UTSA is a young program. This is only the 14th season of play, and they've gone from independent to the Western Athletic Conference to Conference USA, and now the American Athletic Conference in a very short span, right?
That's five leagues in 14 years to your
right.
point.
So, and they've all been the right move. That's the thing, right? They've had the opportunity to move up, and they've done it, and it's really been beneficial from a financial standpoint. Look, UTSA has a $50 million budget, and it wasn't a few years ago where that was around $28 and $30 million. So they've grown exponentially in the last 5 years. And a lot of that is because of the American, right? Let's be honest, the American is a good conference. It provides a lot of exposure for UTSA. The media rights is nothing like it was in Conference USA, the last conference UTSA was in. So I think they're happy. I don't know that they're even getting the full media payout right now because they just joined the league last year. So we'll see what obviously the financial terms and options are. I think that's going to play a big role. I don't see the status of the new Pac-12, if you want to call it, being like the old one, right? Let's be
Right.
honest. So that's gonna dictate a lot of what the revenue is gonna be able to be offered. But if it's the right move, UTSA's president and UTSA's athletic director have shown they're not afraid to pick up and move. So I think to be seen on that one. They're pretty good at that kind of stuff, and I think the Roadrunners are gonna be among the teams in the conversation for sure.
Well, JJ, head on up I-35 later this afternoon or early tomorrow and join us at DKR. Hopefully we get a chance to see you and meet you there in person.
Awesome, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, JJ,
so
thanks.
much.
And I want to say you do a great job, man. You do a great, because I've known Jeff Traylor for 2 decades covering recruiting back at Gilmer. So I follow what you do. You do a great job, man.
Yep, I appreciate it, guys. See you tomorrow.
Have a good one.
Yep.
Welcome.
Thanks, JJ.
I said hook him to the UTSA beat writer. I probably
He probably is. He probably is.
Hey, I wanted to mention we were talking briefly yesterday. We didn't talk about this at the outset. Probably should have because it's national news. For people that are unaware, the Pac-12 added 4 schools yesterday. Okay, Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State. Who do you think? Who else do y'all think they should add? UNLV, maybe Nevada. Those would be naturals. I don't know. Maybe UTSA and Texas State. Although UTEP would get upset about being bypassed by UTSA. I don't know.
Yeah.
New Mexico. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
They got to go for media markets, and New Mexico's not one of those. You know, you got to think about that.
Okay,
North Dakota State. They might win that league pretty quick if North Dakota State's in there, guys.
People are clamoring for UT Boys super chat. Is it on deck?
It is on deck. We'll go ahead and read
here we go.
UT Boy, thank you for the super chat. Hook on from Domino's headquarters. Protest is underway. Yeah, I got some choice words for Domino's currently, but that's all right. I won't share them here.
Hey, the hits keep on coming for the Monroe family. Tell them what happened last night to your middle kid.
Yeah, so my middle son, he plays football for Stephenville and went up to catch a pass in practice and came down, landed on it wrong. And, well, needless to say, we were in the ER for about 3 hours last night. And now he's currently in the other room on crutches and a brace around his ankle and foot. But we go to the orthopedic doctor or surgeon, I guess I should say, Monday, and we'll see what happens.
You just can't stay out of it, Blake. No. Right now, you're in that mode where you got the kids running around. They're driving. They got all their things going on.
Hey, that's all I got to say, Blake, is that the way this has been headed from the injury front, take the trampoline down.
Yeah, I know. Then we had Colt. Colt did something to his foot during summer in baseball. So I mean, it's the youngest is the only one. Knock on wood while I say that. He's the only one that can stay healthy. So, oh man. All right, guys. I need to tell everybody about HelloFresh before we move on. And with HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You can skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. And with summer in the rearview mirror and football season now here, now is the perfect time to save time and money when it comes to your dinner routine. You can skip meal planning and grocery store lines with HelloFresh's convenient doorstep delivery and pre-measured ingredients. Guys, HelloFresh knows that life is busy, especially for somebody like me that chases their kids in and out of the hospital nonstop. So HelloFresh is fast, it's simple, it works great for me times like this for sure, and it will work great for you too. And here's the best part, they're going to hook y'all up with free breakfast for life. All you have to do, HelloFresh.com/free on Texas. Go there and you're going to receive 1 free breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life just by going to HelloFresh.com/free on Texas. And that's HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
I need to hit this question because there's been Tyler asked this like 4 times. Jerry, a Michigan podcast, which I haven't listened to since they got their ass kicked, said they expect Lockett to flip anyways, not the Michigan from Texas. And Texas would go on all in for March. No. Texas did not push for Marsh, and they're not going to push for Andrew Marsh. As far as the Lockett rumors, I mean, that started with Keelan Russell on social media saying he's going to try to flip Texas wide receiver commitments. I mean, I don't know what to say. He couldn't get Corian Moore to go to Bama.
Wow. Jerry, just brutal.
And I love Keelan Russell, by the way, but we got real's real.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, we mentioned Texas being 33 or 35.5 favorites now over UTSA. Jerry, the thing that we talked about and some people are talking about in the chat right now that I completely agree with is that Sark seems to have this team going in the right direction as it relates to really getting after it. Coach Samuel says, we're getting there, Bobby. Coach Sark and company are recruiting the players to keep going up and up. Here's the reality. Last 10, 15 years, one of the teams that did this better than anybody was Alabama. When they were supposed to step on someone's throats and just knuckle down and beat them badly, they did it. And they gave no quarter whatsoever. That's what I'm talking about for Texas to take that next step, to be that next level of program. They have to handle success in a way that creates more success for them. Executing at a high level against lesser teams is part of that. Also, we forgot to mention this too in the outset, Jerry. Did you notice the score of the other game last night? Besides,
I was waiting to bring that up for this read.
Oh, where were you for that?
I'll save it.
Hey, South Alabama, Major Applewhite was 0-2 as a head coach at South Alabama, guys. And he took Northwestern State out of Natchitoches, Louisiana, and he put the Manscaped on them. 87-10. Scored 3 touchdowns in the first quarter, 4 in the second quarter, 4 in the third quarter, scored 1 in the fourth quarter, and then call them off 87-10. He beat up on Northwestern State last night. Congrats to Major Applewhite for his first victory as a head coach at South Alabama and the Jaguars.
Okay,
All right, it's time to bring in our second special guest. I'm very excited about this one. Coach John Simon, standout running back at Louisiana Tech, played a little bit in the NFL, obviously father of James Simon, Texas 4-star running back commitment. But I just wonder, by the way, Southern University Lab in high school, they're not very good at all. Coach, I'm sure Coach can tell us about that. But just a little bit about his coaching background. He was once the AD at Roosevelt High in the Dallas area, but then he got into college football, was a running back coach at Southern Miss, at Louisiana, at Arizona State, at Memphis as an OC, Grambling as an OC. Coach Simon, thanks very much for joining us today. And not many times we get to bring on a guy that played a running back at a high level, coached in the college game, and has a son that's committed to Texas. So thanks for joining us. I think you're muted, Coach.
I say I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
How's it going up in northern Louisiana today, man?
Everything is going good. You know, it's game day here. So James has a big one against Neville Tigers, a well-respected program in the state of Louisiana. So we're excited about this game tonight.
Hey,
Coach, go ahead, Jerry.
No, you got it, Bobby. Go ahead.
You've seen a lot of running backs. You played the position yourself. I was just going to ask you, what's James's strengths and things he needs to work on right now?
James's strengths is that he's an every down running back. So when you evaluate his film, the first thing you always ask yourself is, what is it that a kid can't do? What is his liabilities? James has the ability he's tough in between the tackles. He can run routes. He can catch the ball. And he has the size and the body frame that says that one day he will be able to stick his face in there and block linebackers. One of the areas that he can improve his game right now is that blocking component. Obviously, we know all athletes in high school, running backs specifically, they usually get their offers based off what they do with the ball in their hands. And coaches are not usually harping on top of them about the protection, or they're usually not involved a lot of times when they're the best athlete on the field. So that's one area that he can increase his game. And then obviously the high school game, it's a little different from the college game, as we all know. And some of the things that we're able to do on the third level, the safeties are going to be a lot better on the next level. So I think those are the two areas that he has to work to improve his game. But that's going to be most freshmen that are coming in.
What's his real strength? Like, if you point to him and say, hey, what does James really, really do well right now in comparison to some peers that are also being heavily recruited, right? Like, he has to have a strength for a team like a Texas or a Michigan or whoever, Notre Dame, whoever was after him, right? He has to have a couple of strengths that are also those alpha traits. What are a couple of those for him?
Yeah, so his dominant trait is going to be physical in between the tackles, but again, able to catch the ball and play on third down. So that's what's unique about him. A lot of guys just have one dominant trait to where it's like, okay, we can feature him in this situation, but there's not a situation where you have to take him off the field where you don't feel uncomfortable, whether it's on the goal line, whether it's third and long. He's probably going to be maybe one of the top two guys in any room as it relates to pad level, inside the tackle, as it relates to route running and catching the ball. So that's what makes him special. That's what gives him an opportunity to play on Sunday.
Hey, here's the most important question. Is he better than you were?
So that's a very fair question. And honestly, he is. If anybody knows anything about me, I was a hybrid athlete. A hybrid running back. I was before my time. So I have 264 career catches. I played receiver. I started at receiver. I started at running back. It was where did they need me to play at? So in that, I didn't block at all. That's a problem in college football, especially in the NFL. And I was a punt returner. So I had a different skill set from him. He has a different body and frame. I'm 5'9", 195 pounds. I can make you miss in the phone booth. You know, he's 200 pounds, 5'11", 6 foot. He does not have to make you miss at all. He can run through the phone booth or make you miss in the phone booth. So, yes, to answer that question, he is definitely a better running back than I am. But I tell him I'm still the best athlete in the family.
There you go. Hey, we have a great question that I was going to get to from our chat, from the people watching, over 2,500 people. Coach, what made you trust Coach Sark and Coach Choice with your son? I think that's a great question because you could have gone a lot. James could have gone a lot of places around the country.
Yeah, and I pride myself on being really, really detailed as it relates to running back and coaching running backs and developing running backs. That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. And I'll be candid with you. I'll tell you my conversation with Coach Sark before James even committed. I sat down with him as I've had a chance to visit all the programs across the country, some of the top programs. We've did a whole tour. So we've seen them all and been on the inside and outside. I made sure we went to spring practices and watched guys and watched the structure of practice, watched the relationships with the coaches and the players, watched the organization from top down as relates to the general manager, to the recruiting staff, to everything. And I was very impressed with where Texas is. And I sat with Coach Sark before my son even committed. And I told him, I said, what I've seen in college football right now, I said, where you guys are sitting, you have an opportunity to solidify yourself as the next big program, as the next stable program for the next several years. When you go back to the history of football, you understand that Nebraska had their time. Alabama has had their time. Miami had their time. Florida State had their time. USC had their time. Everybody has had a time in this game. Texas even had a time for a minute there in the early 90s. So what he has built as relates to the structure from coaching, as relates to your general manager, as it relates to navigating this NIL, this portal space, I think overall, when you evaluate the program, I think what they're doing speaks for itself and it speaks volume. I think they're a step ahead of everybody right now. And some of the programs that are our dominant programs, they all have new coaches. So they're still building their culture, and he already has his culture in place before, in the middle of this portal, in the middle of this NIL world that we live in. So I feel that their program is set to be a top 5 program for the next 5 years or so. The reason I trusted them with my son, to get to answer your question, I'm sorry I'm being long.
No, it's great.
What they're doing in alignment. So what was important to me is alignment, because offensive coordinators, they change. Offensive coordinators do a really good job. Most guys desire to be a head coach, and they deserve that opportunity. We had to make a selfish decision for my son. And then when he get there, he needs to be unselfish, because he knows it's the best place for him. If the offensive coordinator does a great job, guess where he's going to be next year at Texas? He's going to be at Texas because he's the head coach. He doesn't have to worry about learning a new system for the next 3 or 4 years, even if coaches change. His running back coach is passionate about the position. He plays the position. He loves kids. He absolutely loves kids. He loves coaching running backs, and you can see the joy and the passion is equal for the kids and for the position. He does a good job of pursuing in the offseason, going meet with guys. He's humble in his spirit. He wants to grow. He wants to learn. He's open to dialogue with other guys in the NFL and other great guys in college. And I think it's a natural fit relationship-wise for my son. The depth chart was important as well. I think what they're doing, when you look at the backs and the success that the backs have had over the last few years, and that speaks to the system that they play in, that speaks to the coaching that they're receiving by choice, and obviously the play calling and how they're being utilized and how they're being used. And they're able to feature and show their skill set at a high level. And they've all been successful. And I think it's resonating with the NFL. And that's why the NFL is heavily evaluating University of Texas running backs. And that's why they're having so much success, not only on the college level, but on the NFL level. And that was a big part of why my son, and the city of Austin, it doesn't get any better than the city of Austin when you're talking about NIL, when you're talking about marketing, when you're talking about if you have a great career at the University of Texas, how that school will support you for the 40 years later.
Good stuff, Coach. I can't. I think that needs to be on an infomercial right there. What do you think, guys? Hey, Coach, I've got to ask you. I'm sure you caught a little bit of that Michigan game. You're a former college coach yourself. What did you think of that? Was that just a display for the Longhorns? Did you think it was the Longhorns' speed that got them? Was it coaches being dialed in? Was it all of the above? What did you see there? Texas versus Michigan.
I thought you had a chance to see all of the above. I thought it was a clinic. I watched it. No one sat in that seat watching the Texas game and said, "What are we doing? Why? Are you kidding me? Why would you call that?" You never felt that. I mean, you felt it was surgical. You felt that they had a great plan. The 2-minute drive, how they executed that plan, the quarterback play, the running back play, up front, defense, special teams. Like, you saw a program that has been established. You saw a team that was prepared, that was ready to play, and they were confident in who they were, but they were confident in their players, and the players was confident in their coaches, and it resonated. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. I text Bejan, I said, this is a clinic. I said, if anybody want to watch this thing, this is a clinic of how you play football. So I was excited to see that game and how they played and where they are. And that's a big game on the road. It's a real big win.
Were you even a little surprised? You're probably going to say no. Were you even a little surprised Texas won physically on both sides of the ball in that game?
Yes and no. Because obviously, when you go up to Michigan, they're known for having the trenches on the offensive side. But I think this is where the NIL has come into play, to where college football is as spread out as it's ever been with talent. No one is just getting all the talent that we've seen in the past. No one is just getting all the offensive linemen or all the defensive linemen, because you can't afford to anymore. Right. Once you spend a little money here, you're gonna have to sacrifice the next class, so that you can't afford to. But I thought that the way that they played and handled the toughness inside spoke to where they are offensively and what they built, and defensively, and what they built inside the box. So I was excited to see it.
Coach, congrats to James. Good luck to him tomorrow playing Neville. I've been up there. Is that still a 2-5A school? LA 25A? Is that what they call that district up there?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're 4A now. They may be 4A now.
I got you.
But they're ranked. They're highly ranked in the 4A class. Obviously, Calvary is the number one in the small school in the 2A class. But they are ranked one of the top programs in this North Louisiana area. So this should be a pretty good battle. We're excited about it.
Hey, and I want to say this to the Texas fans of the 3,000 plus now. If you see that somebody that looks like this walking around the stadium tomorrow, just tell Coach Simon hello, because him and James will be at the game tomorrow after the game tonight. Come by our tailgate, say hello if you got time as well.
We would definitely be by. I'm looking forward to getting down there and enjoying it.
Thank you so much, Coach, for coming on. You let me know anytime you want to come on and break it down, talk. You're free to do so.
Okay, I appreciate the invite. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Coach.
Good luck to James. Good
that
stuff
was pretty
there,
much awesome.
Good stuff. No, it's good because he's the good thing about those kind of discussions is he's got a different viewpoint, right, than somebody really close like we are in the day-to-day. He's trying to evaluate multiple programs from afar, and then by going in and talking to them and developing individual relationships. That was interesting to me about how he and his son chose Texas. The other piece that I really I liked him talking about is, I mean, he's right about the Michigan game. Was there a play where you said, why did Sark call that? Or why was that defense called? Or what is Texas trying to do? I mean, that's far cry from about 4 years ago. I'll just put it that way, before Sark came aboard. So he's dead on about that part too. Good stuff, Jerry. Thanks for having him on.
Why he's so great to have on too is, look, I've read his coaching resume. He's coached, and you can tell he's recruited on the Division I level, Power 5 level. So he has got a perspective that very few people have, as a guy who recruited and coached at the level and has a son that went through the recruiting process at that level. So that's a very unique perspective. Not many people have that perspective. So he absolutely knew what he was looking for his son. And again, those are stamp of approval things. Like when Arch Manning, when the Manning family, that's a stamp of approval, right? When a coach that coached 15, 20 years in college football has one of the sons who's one of the best running backs in the country, they roll with Sark and Choice. That's a stamp of approval. Santana Wilson last year. There's a lot of stamps of approval for Sark and the staff that have happened in the last 2.5 years on the recruiting front, and those things are we can't take those lightly. Those are big stamps of approval.
Good stuff, guys. All right, Jerry, if you are ready,
I'm always ready.
I know you're excited.
Major Applewhite, let's hear it, Jerry.
Look, man, it's time. The Major Applewhite brought out the 5.0 last night. Now, they're still going to have a rough season. Look at their schedule. But 87 points, whoa. It's the beard and balls bundle. Fellas, do you want your grooming routine to be a one-and-done deal? Well, the days of using the same trimmer for your face and your private parts are over, thanks to our very good friends at Manscaped. They've come up with the ultimate package to keep your hairs trimmed from 12 to 6. Introducing the Beard and Balls Bundle, featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedger, a trimmer for the moneymaker and another for the boys downstairs. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code ONTEXAS, all caps, at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code ONTEXAS, all caps, at manscaped.com. For the premium grooming experience, trust Manscaped. South Alabama obviously did. Texas obviously did last weekend. And we'll see if anybody brings it out in the swamp this weekend. Manscaped, all caps, on Texas.
Thank you as always, Jerry. We appreciate it and appreciate you. And guys, let's jump right into some questions. We got plenty. We got super chats. We got a little bit of everything this morning. And we're going to start here with Burt Reynolds Jr. Thank you, Burt Reynolds. He says, will OU or Georgia be the first true test for our defense? OU offense is looking, well, like crap, he says.
I'm not so sure the Mississippi State offense won't be better than OU's. I mean, I think they got a better coordinator at Mississippi State right now, Jeff Lebby, than Seth Luttrell. Just saying. They've got a more veteran quarterback. no, I don't expect Mississippi State to be any great shakes, but as long as OU's wide receiver core is depleted and Jackson Dart is going through first-year problems, I'm not so sure that Mississippi State won't have a better offense than OU. Georgia is the team that has the pro-style offense that I think can hurt Texas. And here's why. I talked to Bob Shipley a little bit about this actually the other day in one of our things. Texas and Rod agreed with me too. Texas is really good right now on defense, Johnny Nansen in particular, at taking away what the other team's offense does really well or limiting it. They took away Michigan's run game a little bit, right? Made it inconsistent. They took away Colorado State's passing game. That's clearly what Nansen kind of predicates his defense on. Georgia's that one team that has the quarterback that can do play action and do drop back, and then they have the power run game. They're the one team that you're going to have a harder time eliminating things on, because if they, not unlike Texas, if you choose your poison with Sark, he'll get you another way. I think Georgia can do the same, and I'm not so worried about OU because I don't think they can run the ball very well. Mississippi State can manufacture the run game a little bit. But Georgia, I think, as of right now, is the only team in the SEC that Texas plays on its schedule that I think can move the ball through the air and on the ground consistently. That's the game that Texas's defense has to really be ready for, in my opinion.
I want to say this is a big game, obviously, for Oklahoma this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
They have to find some confidence on offense. And we're going to see for the first time this weekend how much the Oklahoma defense has improved. Now, if your offense is struggling moving the ball, that puts a different type of pressure on your defense. But this is the first offense that's pretty good, I would say, that Oklahoma's faced this year. So that's going to be interesting. Tulane they want to go vertical more than U of H. And can Tulane pass protect against Oklahoma to let those plays develop? Gentry Williams got hurt last week. Is he going to be available? What's his status in this game? But I'm here to tell you, Oklahoma better find some confidence Saturday against Tulane, because Tennessee's not going to care about their confidence in Norman in 2 weeks.
And then
hey, people missed it. Tulane has been sneaky good the last couple of years. Even not even sneaky. They beat USC in the Cotton Bowl a couple of years back. But Tulane went up to Kansas State this week, 2 weeks ago now. I can't even remember, and lost in the last second on an interception into the end zone. Kansas State, is a pretty good ball club. I think they're playing someone tonight. They're playing Arizona. I couldn't believe this. Yeah. Kansas State is favored tonight over Arizona. Did y'all realize that? They're favored by 7. But my point with Tulane is, let's see what happens here. Brent Venables is hanging his hat on defense right now. And so you score 21 points or more against OU and you have a decent defense yourself, I think you got a chance to win that game pretty easily.
And we got one other super chat, fellas, that we need to knock out. This one for you from UT Boy. Thank you as always, UT Boy. And he says, Madden Farimo update.
He wants that for Brandon Huey. I did speak with somebody, exchange messages with somebody in the circle a couple of days ago, and he does not have a visit planned to Texas as of right now, or they're not ready to release a date if that is set. So right now, in question whether he's going to be back on campus this year. I would say if he doesn't, that's not a good sign for Texas necessarily. So we shall see there. Now, I still expect the visit to happen as long as the recruitment continues to play out to late October, early November, right? So we'll see. But right now, not a visit date that's been put out by the family.
And then let's get into some other questions here. Jerry, I know you've answered a couple of these.
By the way, I'm getting a lot of shirt comments.
Yes.
40 Acres Apparel Co-op.
That's happening today, by the way. Hey, Blake, while you're getting that ready, let me tell people our plans for this weekend, if you don't mind, buddy.
Yeah,
I think that would be good, probably. Right now, we've got not only do we have the co-op today at 3:00. Please come by if you're in town in Austin and say hello. Rod and I will be out there. Jerry will be he will be there virtually in heart with us. Hey, I will say this also for this weekend. We have the Saturday Convo that starts us off at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. Then we have the Texas Tailgate coming up next. Our friends over there taking care of us at the tailgate. We'll make sure we drop the location, Blake, in this chat, and then the one later today as well. Then we have Watch With Us coming on during the game. Aaron Hogan hosts that, followed by our post-game live. Rod Babers and myself sitting there talking a little bit of Longhorns with our special guest, former Longhorn and national champion Brian Robeson. So please join us this weekend. Tomorrow's a big day. Like I said, this is the third game of the year. After this, it seems crazy, but we're going to be a quarter of the way through the 2024 regular season. So Texas taking on UTSA tomorrow at 6:00. Big game for the Longhorns.
So we just thought Coach Simon had brought the goods. Now he really brings the goods. Blake, you got to bring up the photo that Coach Simon sent me. So Coach Simon, he was on the staff at Arizona State in 2017 and 18. This is James in 6th grade with Bijan as a recruit. That's the good stuff right there. You see there, Bijan, a guest of Arizona State when he's going through his recruiting process. And that is James in 6th grade. So really, really cool photo. Coach Simon, I didn't know this. He texted me and said he played Little League with Major Applewhite. Obviously, Major Applewhite with the Baton Rouge Catholic and Coach Simon with the Southern Lab. So that's also pretty cool. But that is one awesome picture there.
That's very cool. Good stuff for sure. All right, guys, we got time for some more questions here, and another super chat from UT Boy. Thank you, UT Boy. He says Tulane and 13.5 points. Trust me, family.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think so. All right, some other ones, guys. Let's jump over to a few more recruiting questions. Charlie wants to know, what's Texas recruitment ranking ceiling for the 25 class?
I'm gonna say 3. And that there would have to be some wild flips to get ahead of that. Ohio State's class is pretty much locked in as a top 2 unless they lose guys. Georgia, because there's 2 5-star linemen in that class left. They got 3 or 4 other guys sitting out there in that class. I think they're going to be locked in the 1 or 2 at the end of the day. So I think right now, that unless Ohio State loses somebody, I think Texas ceiling is probably 3, just doing this for a long time, looking at the classes. But again, those things come down to decimal points and a point, depending on your ranking. So you're in the ballpark. Anytime you're in the top 3, you're in the ballpark there, unless somebody has a magical class like Texas A&M in 2022 that's never won a road game, by the way. I think 3 is probably the ceiling. But again, I'm saying the same thing I've said before. And a lot of times this also comes down to how many guys you sign, right? I mean, if you sign 27 instead of 25, some rankings may not use that, but others do and factor in the whole class, which is what you should do if you're recruiting at a high level. There's so many kind of nuances within that. But I'll say this, though. Texas is going to sign a top 5 class for a 4th straight year. That's really what matters to me.
Yeah. You and me both. It's staying in the right neighborhood, right? And then getting a couple dudes out of them, right? Getting a Ryan Wingo, an Anthony Hill, a Kelvin Banks, an Arch Manning, a Quinn Ewers, guys that are Derek Williams, Manny Muhammad, adding those kind of guys each and every year, along with staying in that top 5 range, is what's important. I did a little recon on this question, actually, Jerry, before we came this morning. I was busy trying to figure some things out on recruiting. And it seems to me, and you just tell me if I'm wrong, that 5 schools right now kind of have a little bit of verve about them that's different than other schools. Okay. That is Texas, Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama. Now I'm not saying others like Auburn's ranked highly right now. Not saying that they can't have a great class too, but it seems like there are 5 schools that kind of are in there. I think USC's trying to join that party. I think Miami's trying to join that party, but they just may not get quite there this year. You agree with that? That kind of
idea?
Yeah,
I do. And I actually was doing some radio stuff with Aaron Hogan before the show, and that we're talking about the state of Georgia. And to tie into what you're saying, Bobby, the interesting thing being in Georgia last week, going to schools, and that was in Atlanta, down to Savannah before I went to Jacksonville to see Jamie French. The interesting thing there was Clemson starting to fade, because Clemson was there for a while.
Did you say fade?
What fade you say? A little. I fade a little bit. I think they're fading a little bit with some kids right now, and maybe it's because Georgia just mudholed them. I don't know. But I think it's also because they're not quite seen on the national championship level anymore. It doesn't take long. I mean, they climbed the mountaintop and they stayed there for a while, but then, Dabo, I think, has kind of hurt his own self. But I think they're on the slide a little bit with kids. Oregon, I think, has been there for years. The uniforms, the Nike, everything they have going for them. Somebody's saying in the chat, maybe Oregon's going to fall off. I don't think so. They've been there a lot longer in recruiting. Now, I think Dan Lanning does a good job selling it and getting out there and hustling as a head coach. He really does. That's a lot of miles he puts on those planes every year. But I agree with you. I think Ohio State. I think Georgia still won, and because look, they won 2 national championships the last 3 years. They played how many college football playoffs have they had? I mean, then they even though FSU quit, they crushed them last year in the bowl game. They have a lot of headwind as well. I think Ohio State obviously is there. And I agree with you. I think if there's one school that can make a push to make it a 6-team conversation, it could be USC if they have a really good season. Because if they start playing better, if they continue to play better defense and that carries over into the Big Ten, I'm still not sure kids in SoCal are fired up about playing in the Big Ten. But if they're good enough on defense, they will start keeping some of those guys home. It's still USC. So they're the one other team that I think could join that group that you mentioned. I don't see Miami joining that group. I just think, look, their facilities are too far behind. Their football stadium is 40 minutes from the campus. If you were a student there, would you rather go to a football game or South Beach? I work in the business. I'd rather go to South Beach. Okay. I mean, so it's like, I think they're going to have a tough time getting there long term. The one that should be there, and they have almost a must-win game Saturday, is LSU. They better not lose South Carolina. Things are going to get ugly in BR.
Hey, they've got a great class too, by the way.
They do.
I like that quarterback they got. I saw him play a little bit. When we were up in Michigan, they were talking about him a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, Brian Kelly needs to get his gang in gear, because right now it don't look pretty over there. All right, need to say thank you. We got about 10, 15 more minutes. We're going to go here today on the Coffee and Football Friday edition. Our show brought to you by our friends over at BKCW Business Insurance. BKCW takes your business out of the insurance trap by providing you with actual risk management consulting, not just price quoting. Operating out of its headquarters in Austin and owned by a UT grad, BKCW uses a 5-step process to identify your business's weak spots, design a plan, execute it, and monitor your situation throughout the year so that you can lower your business's insurance costs and effectively manage your company's risk and employee benefits. BKCW has risk consultants that specialize in every industry you can think of, from construction, transportation, to nonprofit, school districts, etc. You'll get matched with someone who knows your risks and can help you escape the insurance trap. Get started with a free risk assessment at bkcw.com, or send an email, info@bkcw.com. Call them 512-250-5055. That's 512-250-5055. BKCW is the choice of business insurance in Austin.
All right. Thank you, Bobby. Appreciate that. And as you said, we got time for a few more questions here. So, hey, let's take a few about the game day and the team and all that good stuff. And Brendan here, which running back gets the most carries this Saturday?
Jarrett Gibson for me. Jerry's going Velton Gardner. I know it.
I'm actually going Gibson or Velton Gardner in this game. I think Jaden Blue, look, you're going to be careful with him. I think Weiser will kind of do what he's been doing. But I think Jarrett Gibson, again, you don't want to just hand him the ball 17 times in a game you're going to win by 45 or 50 points. And then he ends up rolling his ankle. You got to get those guys experience. But, I mean, could Velton Gardner carry it 12 times Saturday? Get him ready in case there's another injury and he becomes a key player on a team ranked 2 in the country. I guess we'll see. I like that.
I'm going with Jarrett Gibson because he's led the team in rushing attempts the first 2 games.
Yeah.
So I'm going with Jarrett Gibson on that.
And then our next question, fellas, comes from Mamba P. And they ask, assuming we can handle business the next 2 games, I'm curious how much you all think Quinn should play to respect his rhythm, but also to keep him fresh for weeks 5 through 8.
I think so. Here's my key with that is they need to keep building field reps with Golden and Bond and DeAndre Moore. These guys have played 2 games together. Then Quinn needs to get reps with Ryan Wingo, Silas Bolden, Jonte Cook, and Nyblack. They got to keep building rapport. I mean, he's got the best rapport he has is with Matthew Golden. We talked about that late in the summer, heading into the season, and that's obvious now. And Gunnar Helm, but I'm talking wide receivers. So Quinn needs game reps with these guys, Bobby. I think that's very important moving forward because those guys are going to play more as the season moves along. And what if there's a wide receiver injury and one of those guys becomes a frontline player for you? So it's very important for Quinn to get enough reps with those guys to where they keep building and that rapport gets better and better. And at the same time, get Quinn out of there if you handle your business. I mean, so it's a fine line. But number one, I know a lot of people have been asking on TexasFootball.com or to chat about Trey Owens. I don't think you're seeing that. I think you're going to see Quinn get his reps, and I think you're going to see Arch get his reps because you got to prepare Arch too. He needs to have enough reps where he's prepared. So I think you're going to see Quinn play maybe a little more than what we're thinking, but not a lot.
Oh, by the way, somebody's asking me and has asked me a couple different times, by the way, if Trey Owens is injured. I've been told there's no injury to Trey Owens. Apparently, there's a report out there by a not even a University of Texas website, but some national website. I think somebody entered a data key wrong on that. Trey Owens, to my knowledge, does not have a lower leg injury right now and is questionable. I don't believe that.
I mean, he would have had to get hurt celebrating.
Yeah.
True.
Very true. Okay, and then for kind of follow up the whole Quinn question here, Wayne Watson.
Speaking of injuries, I see shadow of crutches.
He's watching a little bit this morning. Wayne Watson says, I just wonder if Quinn comes in and if we're up 40, if Sark will continue with the passing game.
I think he has to, at least the controlled passing game, to get Arch reps, to Jerry's point. It's not – I don't see Texas going for the jugular and throwing, a deep ball up by 40. But I do see them trying to throw the ball the outside, get timing and rhythm established with Quinn and the wide receivers and running backs, as well as the tight ends. Arch doing that. You have to – Sark said this in the preseason to a group of us. You have to – when guys like that come in, you can't just let them sit on the ball. Otherwise, it doesn't really do anything for their development. It doesn't make it actually worthwhile. They need to do more than hand it off. So I like that.
And then our last one for today, fellas. Let's look into the future a little bit. Emmanuel Villafranco, he asked, how many players do you think get drafted now, especially after we have a little sample size from this season. And do you think there will be any surprises?
I'll start with the list, Bobby, you add to it. Kelvin Banks, first round. Quinn, likely first round. Cameron Williams, first or second round. Isaiah Bond. I think if Matthew Golden wants to go pro, he's going to get drafted. I think Gunnar Helm has a chance to get drafted. DJ Campbell, we'll see. I think he would love to have the opportunity to go pro. As Jake Majors played himself into a draft pick. What happens with Trey Moore as season moves along? Makuba's obviously getting drafted. Barron's obviously getting drafted. So, I mean, there's a starting point for you, Bobby. I know you're writing down the names, and you can add on from there. But, not all these guys can get drafted. There's going to be 2 or 3 guys that are undrafted free agents. Not all these guys can get drafted. Alfred Collins obviously will. Does Vernon Broughton do enough? Not all of them are going to hear their name called on draft night. Some will be UFAs or UDFAs, but it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be double digits again.
Here's my take on it. Are you talking about this year, or are you talking about over the entirety of the program? Jerry, you and I talked about in the offseason. We counted 30 plus.
Yeah.
This offseason. I think it was 32 or 33 we thought would eventually be drafted we thought would be drafted. We didn't even count undrafted free agent types through the 4 years or through the entire 85-man roster. That's more than a third of the roster.
Yeah.
So I don't have exact numbers right now. I know this much. The program is healthy. Very, very healthy right now.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football presented by BKCW. We want to thank them along with HelloFresh and Manscaped for sponsoring today's show. We also need to give a special thanks to JJ Perez and Coach John Simon for joining us today. They were both great. Lots of good insight between those two. And, Bobby, I'm going to put the graphic up one last time, but give everybody a quick rundown of what's happening this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Blake. On Saturday morning, we got the Saturday Convo. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Longhorns, who we think the standouts of the game might be. Any late breaking news and notes brought by our friends over at Duck Camp. Texas Tailgate starts at 3. That's me and Jerry going live from the area of the stadium, talking with Longhorn fans there. Please join us, by the way, at the tailgate. Then we have the Watch With Us. It starts at 5:45. That's Aaron Hogan and a host of folks, including Jerry, Coach Bob Shipley, as well as Rod Babers. Post-game live brought to you by our friends at Flight. Flight, your choice for light beer these days. Low carb and low calorie. Immediately following the game, Rod Babers, Brian Robeson, and myself. I want to mention this too. Don't forget about the Flat Creek Estate Wine Garden. They asked us to make sure everybody knew they actually open really early tomorrow. They're opening at noon. So if you're looking for a cold drink with one of those frosés on a hot Texas summer day, hang out over there. I know Jerry Hamilton will be going and getting one of those.
I'll stop by.
He and Rod will be over there with their umbrellas, and I know them.
And Bobby mentioned the tailgate. We will be doing the broadcast from.
Yeah, tailgate's over at the north end of the stadium, northeast corner on the LBJ lawn. Hope to see you guys there. By the way, we talked about so much during this thing. Jerry talked about Zealous Hicks earlier, the commitment from Carrollton, Georgia. For guys that came on late, make sure you check back in on that. We also talk about a news that Jerry broke some news last night. A&M defensive tackle commit Chase Sims is committed to A&M, but also is committed to visiting Texas for the Mississippi State game. That's going to be an official visit, according to Jerry and to Chase. Other news and notes, just check out ontexasfootball.com. That's your source for Longhorn news and community. Appreciate you guys joining and becoming OTF OGs over there on ontexasfootball.com.
Well, we hope you all have a great and safe weekend. Hope you enjoy the big game, of course. And
hey, bring in little man. Bring in little man. Come over here. Come over here. How you feeling, bud? You feeling all right?
Yeah.
Good. Glad you're feeling all right, man.
Ready to get back on the football field for sure. But yes, as Bobby said, head on over to ontexasfootball.com. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We would appreciate that too. We will be back same time, same place on Monday morning. So for Bobby Burton, Jerry Hamilton, Tate, and myself, we will see you then.